The first person to say my wife's name like he owned it was a stranger with a receipt printer. I was in Brass and Pine Mercantile on Trestleview Avenue, holding a box of faucet washers I didn't even need. I'd come in to kill 10 minutes before heading home, quiet aisles, stale sawdust smell, the harmless comfort of buying something ordinary. The clerk leaned over the counter and called toward the back without looking up. "Hey, tell Mira her bag is still here." He said it like a routine. Like he'd said it before. Like the name belonged to the store. A man stepped out from behind the shelving, wiping his hands on a rag, smiling as if the whole place was his living room. "She'll circle back," he said. "She always does." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched him. He noticed me, took in my face, and nodded, polite, casual. "You her husband?" he asked. "Yes," I said. His smile didn't drop. That was the part that mattered. No flinch. No apology. No recalculation. "Tell her Gavin says hi," he said, and walked past me toward the door. He pushed it open with the confidence of someone who'd never been corrected. I stood there long enough for the clerk to glance up and read my posture. "You okay, man?" he asked. "Fine," I said, and placed the box of washers on the counter like I was still a normal customer. The clerk scanned it. The register beeped. The sound felt wrong in my chest. Outside, I watched the parking lot. No silver hatchback. No Mira. Just the wind moving trash along the curb like the town had nothing better to do. Mira had texted me an hour earlier, late. "I'm meeting a friend. Need air." She'd been needing air for nearly a year. That year she called it finding herself, as if the phrase made everything clean. She said it softly, with practiced exhaustion, as if I owed her patience for whatever she was doing behind my back. I didn't call her. I didn't text her back. I drove home and did the only thing that kept me from making noise too early. I waited. She came in at 9:18 p.m., quiet as a teenager, keys in her hand, shoulders squared like she'd rehearsed the angle. She had a paper cup from Juniper Quay Tea House, a place she'd discovered this year, as if I hadn't lived in this town long enough to know every storefront. "Hey," she said, too casual. "Hey," I replied from the kitchen table. She hovered, reading me. She was good at that. Mira didn't just lie, she monitored the room for how much truth she needed to spend. "You eat?" she asked. "Yeah." A pause. "How was your day?" "Normal," I said. She set her cup down and smiled like she'd passed an exam. "Good," she said. "I'm trying to keep things steady." Steady. That word showed up whenever she wanted credit for not detonating the house. I nodded once. "Where'd you go?" Her eyes flicked, just a blink too long. "Just out." "I told you." "With who?" "Just a friend," she said. Then she added, like a shield, "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to understand what I want." There it was. The year's slogan. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her a scene to use later. I stood, walked to the fridge, and poured water like I didn't care. "Okay," I said. She watched me like that answer was suspicious. "What's that mean?" she asked. "It means okay," I said. "You're looking for yourself. I'm not going to chase you around the map." Her jaw tightened. "So you're mad?" "No," I said. "I'm paying attention." That landed. She didn't like it. She didn't know what to do with it. She turned away first. "I'm tired. I'm going to shower." "Go ahead," I said. When she closed the bathroom door, I took out my old notebook from the drawer, the one I used to keep job measurements in. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, carefully. Gavin. Brass and Pine Mercantile. Clerk said, Myra's bag is still here. Time, 6:12 p.m. Then I left space under it. Because a man doesn't say, tell her I said hi, unless he expects the message to be delivered. Unless he said it before. Unless she's trained him to think her marriage is just background noise. When Mira came out, hair damp, face relaxed, she stood in the doorway and studied me. You're being weird, she said. I looked up. I'm being quiet. That's worse, she replied, and climbed into bed without touching me. I waited until her breathing slowed. Then I wrote one more line in the notebook. If she thinks she has permission, she'll keep moving. If she keeps moving, she'll slip. I didn't feel better. I felt organized. And that was the first real change of the year. The next name came from her sister. It always does. Family carries truth differently, looser, heavier, harder to hide. Myra's sister, Elena, called me 3 nights later while I was rinsing a plate that was already clean. She didn't say hello. She never did when she was nervous. Is Mira home? She asked. She's out, I said. Why? A breath through the phone, sharp and quick. Out where? I didn't answer. Elena filled the silence the way people do when they're afraid of it. She told me you two were flexible right now. That's a generous word, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. She said you understood, Elena continued. About her year. I turned off the faucet. Her year of what? Figuring things out, Elena said. Then, softer, seeing people. There it was. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just placed carefully in the open, like it had always belonged there. I didn't agree to that, I said. Elena went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its confidence. She told me you knew. She told you wrong. Silence again. This one heavier. Oh, Elena said. The word landed like a dropped tool. Then. I shouldn't have. No, I said. You should have. She swallowed audibly. I thought you were okay with it. She made it sound mutual. That's how she survives, I said. By making choices sound shared. Elena didn't defend her. That mattered. She's been different, Elena said. Restless. Like she's collecting something. I wrote the word down as she spoke. Who? I asked. Elena hesitated, then answered anyway. I know about Gavin. And someone named Luke. She mentioned a climber too, Oren, I think. 3 names. Clean. Clear. I thanked her and ended the call before guilt could make her recant. I didn't confront Mira. Not yet. Instead, I adjusted my behavior just enough to give her room to misstep. When she told me she was going out, I said, okay, and didn't ask where. When she came home late, I didn't check the time. When she spoke about confusion, I didn't reassure her. The absence bothered her more than anger would have. You're pulling away, she said one morning while tying her shoes. I'm respecting your process, I replied. She froze. My process? That's what you call it, I said. Finding yourself. She watched me closely, recalculating. That doesn't mean I don't care about us. I didn't say it did. That answer unsettled her. She wanted resistance. Resistance meant relevance. The first lie came in writing. She texted while I was at Harborline Electrical, picking up conduit for a job. Running late. Walk turned into coffee. I replied, with who? 3 dots. Gone. Back again. Just someone from yoga. Don't worry. I stared at the screen. I'm not worried, I typed. Just asking. 10 minutes passed. Then, I haven't been seeing anyone. If that's what you're asking. There it was. Simple. Flat. Confident. I screenshot it. Not for leverage. For alignment. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened the notebook again and wrote everything down, names, times, exact phrases. No emotion. Emotion distorts memory. By the time I finished, the house was quiet in a way that felt final. Mira was still searching for herself. I wasn't searching anymore. I was mapping. And maps don't care how lost someone feels. Once you stop asking questions, people start answering them anyway. Mira didn't notice the shift right away. She was still operating on the assumption that silence meant tolerance. That had worked for her most of the year. I let it keep working, because habits make people careless. The next confirmation didn't come from her family. It came from proximity. I went to Stonewake climbing loft on a Thursday afternoon, not to climb. I paid for a day pass and sat on a bench near the lockers with a bottle of water I never opened. The place smelled like chalk and rubber and sweat pretending to be discipline. Mira walked in 20 minutes later. She wasn't alone. The man with her matched Elena's description without effort: lean, rope-burned hands, confidence that came from being good at something physical. Oren. I didn't need to hear the name this time. Body language fills in gaps faster than words. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Familiarity did the work for them. He handed her shoes like it was normal. She laughed like she didn't have to earn it. I didn't move. I watched them check in. I watched them warm up. I watched her touch his arm when she spoke, then leave her hand there half a second too long. When they finished and walked out together, they split in the parking lot. Separate cars. Clean. Practiced. That mattered. I wrote it down when I got home. The next slip came from someone Mira underestimated. Caleb, the neighbor 2 houses down, stopped me while I was taking the trash out. He was mid-50s, retired early, observant in the way men get when they don't rush anymore. "Your wife's got a lot of visitors lately," he said casually, nodding toward my driveway. "Work friends," I replied. Caleb hummed. "One of them waits in his car sometimes. Engine running. Same guy twice this week." I looked at him. "What time?" "Late mornings," he said. "When you're usually gone." I thanked him and finished with the trash. Caleb wasn't gossiping. He was reporting. There's a difference. That night, Mira tested me. She came home earlier than usual, energetic, almost bright. She cooked. She laughed. She asked about my day. Then, carefully, "You don't mind if I go out tomorrow morning, right?" "Why would I mind?" I said. "With friends." I nodded. "You're allowed." Her smile faltered. "Just a fraction." "I mean," she said, "I don't want you thinking." "I'm not thinking," I replied. "You asked." I answered. She studied me, unsettled. She preferred arguments. Arguments gave her something to manage. Instead, she went to bed uneasy. I didn't sleep much. Not because I was angry. Because clarity is loud when it arrives all at once. By then I had names, places, times, and one written denial that contradicted all of it. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was confirming. Mira thought she was living parallel lives. What she didn't realize was that parallel lines still show direction. And hers was pointing straight out of the marriage, whether she admitted it or not. I closed the notebook and set it back in the drawer. The next phase wouldn't involve watching. It would involve letting her speak. People who believe they're justified always do. Mira didn't like silence unless she was the one creating it. By the 4th week of my withdrawal, she started filling the air again, small explanations offered without being asked, casual disclaimers slipped into ordinary conversation. "I ran into Gavin today," she said one evening, too lightly. "Totally random. I kept my eyes on the pan." "Okay. He was picking up hardware," she added. "Nothing weird." I nodded once. She waited. When nothing came back, irritation crept into her voice. "You're not curious?" "No," I said. "If it mattered, you'd tell me." That landed wrong. She turned away, jaw tight. The next day she escalated. She left her phone on the kitchen counter when she showered. That hadn't happened in months. Not an accident. An invitation. I didn't touch it. When she came back out, wrapped in a towel, she checked the counter immediately. Her shoulders loosened when she saw it untouched. That told me more than any message ever could. 2 days later, she asked for coffee. Not at home. Neutral ground. Public. Performative. We met at Driftwood and Coil, a place she liked because it felt reflective without being intimate. Exposed brick, low music, tables close enough to overhear but far enough to deny it. She arrived early and had already ordered. "I think we should talk," she said. "We are," I replied, sitting down. She inhaled carefully. "I feel like you've been judging me." "I've been listening," I said. "That's not the same," she snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, you're not hearing my intention." "What's your intention?" I asked. "To understand myself," she said immediately. "I've told you that." I nodded. "And the men?" Her eyes flicked away. "I didn't cheat." I didn't respond. She leaned forward, voice dropping. "I didn't. I never crossed a line." "Which line?" I asked. She hesitated. "You know what I mean." "No," I said calmly. "I don't." Her face flushed. "You're twisting this." "I'm clarifying," I replied. "You told me in writing you weren't seeing anyone." She froze. "You saved that," she said. "Yes. That's invasive," she snapped. "It's accurate," I said. "Which is more than your explanation." Her mouth opened, then closed. She recalculated. "Fine," she said. "I met people. I talked. I needed connection. And permission," I added. She shook her head. "You never stopped me." I leaned back. "You never asked." That was the moment her story cracked. Not shattered, cracked. Enough to let light through. "You're making this adversarial," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm making it specific." She sat back, arms crossed. "What do you want?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "I want the truth," I said. "Not the version that makes you comfortable. The one that matches your calendar." Her eyes hardened. "I'm not going to be interrogated." "Then don't volunteer answers," I said. "But stop pretending silence equals consent." She stood abruptly. "I'm leaving." "Of course," I said. "You always do." She stopped, stared at me like she might say something else, then turned and walked out. I stayed seated until my coffee went cold. That conversation gave me what I needed, not a confession, but resistance. People resist hardest where they're exposed. When I got home, I wrote everything down. Tone. Timing. Exact words. Mira believed she could still control the frame. She didn't realize the frame was already set. And the next time she spoke, it would be somewhere she couldn't leave. Mira chose the place for the next conversation, and that told me everything I needed to know. She suggested Halcyon Hall, a shared workspace with glass walls, pale wood tables, and voices that never rose above polite. The kind of place where conflict felt inappropriate by design. Neutral, she said. Calm. Structured. What she meant was controlled. I agreed immediately. That unsettled her. She didn't expect compliance without resistance. Resistance gave her leverage. Compliance made her nervous. We arrived separately. She was already seated when I walked in, coat folded beside her chair, phone face down but within reach. She'd ordered tea. Chamomile. Something meant to signal peace. I sat across from her and said nothing. She filled the silence the way she always did when she felt exposed. I don't want this to turn into something ugly, she said. Then don't soften it, I replied. Just be accurate. Her eyes narrowed slightly. That's not fair. Neither was the assumption, I said. She inhaled slowly, visibly steadying herself. I've told you, I didn't cheat. I didn't interrupt. I let the words sit between us. I didn't cross a line, she continued. I was honest about needing space. You knew I was seeing people. I knew you were leaving the house, I said. That's not the same thing. She leaned forward. You never stopped me. I nodded once. You never asked. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. Her mouth opened, then closed again. You're reframing this, she said. Making it sound calculated. It is, I replied. Just not on my side. She looked away toward the glass wall, where two people were quietly typing at a long table, oblivious. The public setting no longer felt safe to her. It felt exposed. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Why now? Because you put it in writing, I said. You denied everything. That changed the rules. Her jaw tightened. You saved that text. Yes. That's invasive. It's factual, I said. You confuse the two when it suits you. She shook her head, frustrated. I was confused. I still am. I don't know what I want. I know what you did, I replied. Those aren't the same. Her voice dropped. You're acting like a prosecutor. No, I said. I'm acting like someone who stopped absorbing ambiguity. She folded her arms. What do you want from me? The question slipped out sharper than she intended. Not curiosity. Pressure. I want alignment, I said. Between your words and your behavior. She laughed once, bitter. That's impossible. It's inconvenient, I corrected. She stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled. Fine. You want clarity? I met people. More than one. Less than 10. I nodded. Names. Her head snapped up. No. This is where you decide, I said calmly. Correction or continuation. Her hands clenched in her lap. She looked smaller than she had in months. Not fragile, cornered. Gavin, she said finally. Oren. Luke. And 2 others. I wrote them down. The sound of the pen moving across paper changed her expression completely. What are you doing with that? She asked. Remembering, I said. Since you didn't. Her voice rose despite herself. You're trying to trap me. I met her eyes. I didn't move you. You walked here. She pushed back from the table, chair scraping loud enough to draw attention. A few heads turned. I can't do this, she said. You already did, I replied. She stood there for a second, breathing hard, then grabbed her coat and walked out without looking back. I stayed seated long after she left. Not to prove a point. To let the moment settle. Once spoken in a room with witnesses, even silent ones, the story stopped being hers alone. And that was the first place she couldn't rewrite it. Mira didn't call me after Halcyon Hall. That was deliberate. Silence was her first revision tool. If she didn't speak, she could imagine the conversation shrinking, softening, becoming optional. She believed distance diluted consequence. It doesn't. It concentrates it. 2 days passed. Then 3. On the 4th morning, the change reached me through other mouths. It started with Elena again. "She's saying you ambushed her," Elena said over the phone, voice tight. "That you pressured her in public. That you're not stable." I was sitting at the kitchen table, notebook open, coffee cooling untouched. "Is that what she believes?" I asked. "She believes it's what she needs to say," Elena replied. That was honest. I respected it. "What else?" I asked. "She told people you've been tracking her," Elena continued. "Showing up places. Collecting things." I looked at the notebook. Dates. Locations. Names. All public. All neutral. "I observed," I said. "I didn't follow." "I know," Elena said quickly. I told her that. "But she's building a version where that doesn't matter." I wrote narrative shift, day 4 at the top of the page. "That version will require witnesses," I said. "She doesn't have them." Elena hesitated. "She thinks feelings are enough." "That's the mistake," I replied. "They aren't." The next message came from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Paige, a woman Mira knew through her wellness group, texted me out of nowhere. "I don't know what's going on, but Mira is scared. Please stop whatever you're doing." I stared at the message. Stop what? Watching. Listening. Writing. I didn't reply. I saved it. By that afternoon, 2 more messages arrived. Same tone. Same structure. No specifics. Just emotion, packaged as urgency. Mira was circulating a warning. Soft language. No accusations sharp enough to be challenged. Just implication. That told me she wasn't ready to confront facts. She was preparing a defense against them. That evening, she broke her silence. "We need to talk. Alone. No greeting. No context." I read it once, then again. I replied with one sentence. "I'm available with a third party present." The dots appeared instantly. "Why are you doing this?" she typed. "You're being controlling." There it was. The word she'd been practicing. "I'm being specific," I replied. "Choose a mediator." Her response came slower this time. "You're trying to trap me." I set the phone down and didn't answer. 10 minutes later, another message. "Fine. I'll come by tomorrow. We can end this." I looked at the words come by. People who feel unsafe don't suggest visiting alone. People who want to reset the frame do. I wrote it down. She showed up the next afternoon, unannounced, standing on the porch like she was waiting for permission she didn't believe she needed. Her posture was rigid. Defensive. She had rehearsed something. I opened the door and didn't step aside. "I said we shouldn't meet alone," I said. "You don't get to dictate that," she snapped. "This is my house too." "It was," I replied. "Right now it's a location." She stared at me, stunned by the lack of softness. "You're really doing this," she said. "Turning me into the villain." "You did that yourself," I said. "I just stopped buffering it." She stepped forward. I didn't move. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, voice shaking. I was confused. "Confusion doesn't require secrecy," I replied. Her eyes flashed. "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to protect you from your own record." She looked past me into the house, then back at my face. Her voice dropped. If you don't talk to me now, she said, I'll have to tell people why. I held her gaze. Then tell them the whole thing. She flinched. That was the moment she realized she couldn't threaten me with exposure anymore. Exposure was already complete, just not public. She turned away sharply and walked down the steps without another word. I watched her drive off, then closed the door and locked it. That night, the posts began. Not public declarations. Subtle ones. Carefully phrased. Learning to choose safety. Some people don't like losing control. Growth is lonely. I didn't need to see them. Elena sent screenshots. I printed them. Because once someone starts narrating pain without naming actions, they're laying groundwork for something formal. And I wanted my groundwork older than hers. By the end of the week, I had a clear sequence. Observation. Denial. Exposure. Revision. Preemptive victimhood. Mira wasn't searching anymore. She was defending territory she no longer controlled. And the next step, for someone like her, would be escalation. Not emotional. Administrative. Which meant paperwork. And I was already ahead of her there. Mira filed on a Tuesday. Not early enough to look urgent. Not late enough to look hesitant. Tuesday was deliberate, far enough from the weekend to seem measured, close enough to Halcyon Hall to imply cause. Elena called me first. She did it, she said. She filed a statement. Says she feels unsafe. Says you've been monitoring her. I was at my desk, notebook open, pen already in my hand. When, I asked. This morning, Elena replied. She thinks you don't know yet. I wrote Tuesday, 9:14 a.m. and underlined it. What exactly did she claim, I asked. Elena exhaled. That you showed up places she didn't expect. That you pressured her to confess. That your silence felt threatening. Silence felt threatening. I let that phrase settle. Did she give dates, I asked. No, Elena said. Just feelings. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Thank you for telling me. She hesitated. What are you going to do? I'm going to respond, I said. Not react. The notice arrived that afternoon. Thin envelope. Neutral language. No drama. Paper doesn't perform, it records. I read it once. Then again, slower. No allegation of violence. No claim of physical restraint. Just a narrative of fear built on implication and tone. I opened the drawer and took out the folder I'd been building for weeks. Notebook scans. Text screenshots. Dates. Public locations. Her written denial. I didn't rush. I drafted my response the same way I'd done everything else, chronologically. I stated where I had been. Where she had been. Who else was present. What was said. What was written. No adjectives. No interpretation. Just sequence. Mira tried to reach me that night. Blocked. Then she tried email. You didn't have to do this, she wrote. I just wanted space. I forwarded it to my attorney and archived it. Space was what she'd had all year. What she wanted now was silence on my side. She wasn't going to get it. The hearing was scheduled quickly. Administrative escalations always are. They thrive on urgency. I arrived early. Sat still. Folder in my lap. Mira came in 10 minutes late, eyes red, posture careful. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. She needed me frozen in her version. When it was her turn to speak, she cried on cue. She talked about anxiety. About unpredictability. About how watching felt like control. The clerk nodded sympathetically. Then it was my turn. I stood and handed over copies. Texts. Dates. Her written denial. Public locations with timestamps. Her own admission at Halcyon Hall. The room changed. Paper does that. It drains emotion from the walls. The clerk asked her about the denial. She hesitated. Then she said, "I didn't mean it like that." The clerk nodded once and wrote something down. Meaning isn't evidence. Sequence is. When it ended, nothing dramatic happened. No scolding. No vindication speech. Just a quiet conclusion. Her request was denied pending further review. We were told to leave separately. Outside, Mira finally looked at me. "You wanted to win," she said. I met her eyes. I wanted it to stop. She laughed bitterly. "You're cold." "No," I said. "I'm finished." She stood there, searching for something else to say. There wasn't anything left that wouldn't be written down. That night, I closed the notebook for the last time. Not because the story was over. But because it no longer needed narration. There was only one part left. And it didn't involve her explaining herself at all. After the hearing, Mira didn't try to reach me again. Not because she understood. Because there was nothing left she could say without creating another record. Silence became her last defense, the only version of control still available to her. I respected it. I changed the locks 2 days later, not out of spite, but procedure. Shared access only works when there's shared reality. Ours had expired. I boxed her remaining things carefully. Clothes folded. Shoes paired. Nothing damaged. Nothing symbolic. Just inventory. I left the boxes with Elena, who didn't argue, didn't apologize, didn't ask me to soften anything. "She still says you ruined her," Elena told me quietly. "I know," I replied. "That story needs a villain." Elena nodded. "And you're okay being it?" "I'm okay being accurate," I said. That was the last time we talked about Mira. The house changed slowly. Not dramatically. No catharsis. Just subtraction. Her mug disappeared from the sink. Her charger stopped moving from outlet to outlet. The air felt quieter, not peaceful, just unclaimed. People expect relief at the end of something like this. What I felt was alignment. Nothing contradicted anything else anymore. A month later, I ran into Gavin again. Same store. Same aisle. Different posture. He saw me first and stopped walking. "Hey," he said, uncertain now. I didn't know. Back then. "I know," I replied. He nodded once, grateful not to be punished for ignorance. "She okay?" I looked at a shelf of fasteners, all identical, all labeled. "She's consistent," I said. "That's as close as she gets." He didn't ask more. Neither did I. The notebook stayed in the drawer. I didn't throw it away. I didn't reread it either. It had done its job. People think closure comes from explanation. From apologies. From shared understanding. It doesn't. Closure comes when the story stops changing. Mira had spent a year searching for herself by avoiding definition. By keeping every door half open so she never had to stand in one place long enough to be seen clearly. In the end, paper did what patience couldn't. It fixed her outline. The last thing I did was remove her name from the mailbox. Not ceremonially. Just a strip of tape, peeled off and discarded. No audience. No speech. The house didn't react. Neither did I. That was how it ended. Not with forgiveness. Not with revenge. Not with reconciliation. Just a record that matched reality. And a quiet space where her explanations used to be.